everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I'm really excited to be doing a viewer Q&A about The Ivies, which is my YA thriller coming out May 25th, 2021. It is so close, so soon, slash, why you might be here, art giveaway, I was given the green light by my publisher to do an eARC giveaway. Unfortunately, there are no printed ARCs of The Ivies. The summer 2021 Random House list can't do any printed ARCs, and I know that really sucks because there are all sorts of accessibility issues with eARCs on one end, but the amazing news is they're eARCs. As long as you have a NetGalley account or are willing to set one up in order to download the book, this ARC giveaway is open internationally. Yay! I was so excited when I realized that. It was like this silver lining of the whole eARC situation. But I wanted this to be a juicier video than just comment down below to be entered in the eARC giveaway and comment down below to be entered in the eARC giveaway. But I put up a call on Instagram stories as well as my community tab. I was curious, what do you guys want to know about this book? You guys overwhelmed me with some great questions. So many that I'm considering whether I do more than one video on this, like save a couple of them for other videos about the Ivies. But I'm going to get to as many as I can. And there's only one instance where I am going to discuss a spoiler because I was asked by multiple people about trigger warnings or content warnings, but I'm going to save that to the very end, and all the timestamps are down below, and YouTube will segment the video into chapters so that only if you want the content warning that you can watch that. Otherwise, this will be spoiler free. I will only talk about premise related things that you could get from the back cover copy, plus all the process stuff, because I got some really good process questions. But first, what is the Ivies? I'm going to read you my official blurb from NetGalley itself, just in case you're like, huh? What is this book? I feel like I've talked about it a lot, but not actually given you this official blurb, which when you think about it is like, how many videos do I make on this channel? And you may or may not even know what my book is about. So, readers of Karen M. McManus and Holly Jackson will want to enroll in this boarding school thriller about a group of prep school elites who would kill to get into the college of their dreams, literally. Everyone knows the Ivies, the most coveted universities in the United States. Far more important are the Ivies. The Ivies at Claflin Academy, that is. 5 girls with the same mission, to get into the Ivy League by any means necessary. I would know, I'm one of them. We disrupt class ranks, club leaderships, and academic competitions, among other things. We improve our own odds by decreasing the fortunes of others, because hyper-elite competitive college admissions is serious business. And in some cases, it's deadly. So it's actually interesting to me because that blurb, that's from my prologue, which wasn't originally a prologue. That's like kind of a fun fact about the book. It was part of a different part of the book, and my editor was like, should this be a prologue? So that is from the perspective and in the voice of my main character, Olivia. So diving into your questions, I'm going to try to start with some of the top line ones that you guys asked that are very easy to answer quickly. So single or multi-POV, it is a single POV book in first person present tense from the point of view of my main character, Olivia. She is your outsider character. She is the scholarship kid who is going to this elite boarding school and trying to kind of claw her way into the upper classes. What is the age range? I got a couple different age-related questions, including one like, would a mature 13-year-old be able to read this? I got a question on Goodreads about how I would rate it, and I said it would be like a hard PG-13 because I was thinking about it and what would warrant an R in the United States for a movie, and none of that is really in the book. But I think the sweet spot for this, definitely if you're 13 or 14-year-old, is on the mature side. Like, they're not thrown mostly by harsh language. That's the thing and kind of the sentiment in it that really pushes it into upper YA. My characters curse a lot. The F word is in this book a lot, and a lot of the characters are pretty nasty to each other. But there isn't a lot of violence in the book. There's some, but someone asked if there's gore. There's no gore in this book. I'm not a gory writer. So there are violent things that happen several times, but they're not described in any gory or overly detailed detail. So definitely a mature younger teen could read this, like if they're graduating from, say, Karen McManus's books up to this one, or if they read The Good Girl's Guide to Murder and they liked that book. This book is kind of definitely in the wheelhouse of Good Girl's Guide in terms of some of the more adult topics. There are teenagers who drink and they're underage in the United States. As I mentioned, some of cursing, just the language, definitely the language, but there's no overt violence or sexual content. There is some romance. That was another question, but we'll circle back on that one. But it's really upper YA, like it's targeted to 16 and up. Several people also asked if it is a standalone or a series. It is a standalone. It is written as a standalone. I mean, if people really like it and my publisher were to ask me to write a sequel, I'm not exactly sure how I would do that, because it is a standalone. These characters are seniors and they do graduate from school in the course of this book. Like, this takes place in December of senior year and it actually starts on early decision day. It's kind of that time period, winter of senior year, and it takes place over the course of like 10 days. So while I'm not really sure how a sequel would work, I'm just gonna say never on that, but it is a standalone. You get a complete story from this. I really loved this question, which was, what is your favorite line out of context? And this one popped into my mind immediately. This is from the first chapter, and the line out of context, you can kind of figure out the context. I'll never stop marveling at rich kids getting upset about other people calling them rich. They're so sensitive. That gives you an idea of kind of Olivia, the main character, and her voice. A lot of people wanted to know, who is my favorite character? It's really hard to answer this question because I feel like it can get spoilery. Like, I'm worried if I tell you who my favorite character is that you're gonna go, oh, and make some guesses about where the book goes. So I'll say my favorite character in this book is a badass bitch. I have multiple badass bitches in this book, and one of them is my favorite. Once the book's out, and I will end up doing a spoiler FAQ a couple months after the Ivies comes out, so we can talk in depth about this character and how I kind of stan them. Another question was my favorite set piece, and I definitely have one. It's in the third act. It's around the point of the climax, and I don't think it's spoilers to say this because I've mentioned this in other videos. There's a party. Are you surprised? There's actually more than one party scene in this book, but this is one in the third act, and it is this outrageous house party at a mansion. There's a costume element, and it's a really important set piece for my climax, and God, I had fun writing it. I had so much fun writing it, and I hope it's fun for people to read. There's all sorts of like twists and shocking moments, and I tried to use all the space, and I got to like go on Pinterest and look at rich people's houses. I actually looked on Zillow too because I'm creepy. It was a lot of fun. This one also made me think, which was, if you hadn't chosen the title The Ivies, what else would you have named it? And the thing is, it was never a question, so I never had to think at all about what else I would name it. But I might have done like a take on my tagline for it, which was they'd kill to get in. Like, that was the tagline I came up with like for my manuscript on sub. And we were actually able to use it on the jacket, which was exciting. So I'd probably do a variation of that, though my thing is, my gut tells me you don't want a really long wordy title for your thriller. I definitely prefer the Ivies across the board, but that's probably the only other one I might have thought about. How much did you happy cry when you saw that cover? I'm not someone who really cries, not happily. I've never cried in reaction to publishing news. It's just not my style. But if I were a happy crier, I would have wept buckets. I did scream a little, like in a happy, good way. So like, if I were a crier, I would cry a lot, because I had a moment when that cover came into my inbox. I was like, wait, this is just a digital comp. It was stunning, and I continue to be just like overwhelmed with how much I love the cover. Oh, I love this one too. Are there any Easter eggs hidden in the book? Yes, there are. There are a couple. So Claflin Academy is the name of the private school, and Claflin was the name of my freshman dorm at Boston University. So if you went to Boston University and you're like, huh? I'm like, yes. I was just like, I need a name that sounds like a rich school in the Northeast. I'm like, well, let's think about how they name dorms and buildings at your college. And to that end, I named a bunch of the dorms and buildings in my book after friends of mine because I just thought that would be kind of fun. So there's a Kistner Hall, which is named after my friend Adrian Kistner. There's the Coleman Performing Arts Center, which is named after my friend Alyssa Coleman. And then I named the main administrative building where the commissary is Austen Hall. That's just Jane Austen. Another kind of Easter egg is I make a Cruel Intentions reference, like a joke in the book, and it wasn't for Lainey, but I thought of Lainey when I wrote it because I am also a fan of Cruel Intentions and that whole trope. And so like when she read the book, I was like, let me know if you spot your Easter egg. I consider that Lainey's Easter egg, so you can look for that Cruel Intentions joke as well. And then there's just tons of little things in it that I can't necessarily admit to. And those are Easter eggs, like references that are based on real things from the world of elite college admissions and different kind of stories I've heard over the years and experiences. And so you might spot some things. I will never admit to some of them. I protect the privacy of people who tell me things, but there's a ton of fun, like little real references. And to that end, I got multiple questions from different people who were wondering if I had experience with college admissions, if I interviewed people on college admissions. So I have worked and do work in college essay consulting. So it's like a subsection of the admissions industry, and I mostly do pro bono work and have since 2014, I believe, 2013, 2014, and I have done some private consulting. So there is a character who's kind of based on that world, but like the more outrageous side of the world, I mean, they're legit admissions consultants who don't just do essays, they do everything, and they can charge $20,000 a year. And like that is in the book, that's real. But the aspects of the essay part are based on real experience. I've talked to admissions professionals, like just through the years of being interested in it long before I wrote this book. I have a College Confidential account. I am a poster on the Applying to College subreddit. Like those are worlds that I have lived in, worked with a lot of students through those places, so those things are in the book and definitely informed a lot of the things in the book. Someone also asked if the college scandal impacted this book, and yes it did. I actually was vlogging my writing process of this book from start to finish, and there's a vlog that covers that. Essentially, I came up with the brainwave for this book, and people asked about inspiration too. So we're just gonna cover it in one, like how did the Ivies come about and how was I impacted by the college admissions scandal? I have worked in that world. It's fascinating. I am aware of how intense it is and how much it has changed over the years. And I, like many of you, I'm sure, I have read far too many books. You find it in YA, but you see it in TV and movies too, where the representation of college admissions is just completely inaccurate in very stupid and annoying ways. And I was like, it would be a waste of this wealth of knowledge and all of this time that I've spent in this world that I enjoy. I really like helping students, and not write a YA book about it. You're a YA writer and you know about competitive college admissions, but I'm not a contemporary writer, and I didn't want to write a contemporary book. It has been done in some very good high concept contemporary books that use college admissions, like, you know, cheating and whatnot as an angle. That was never gonna be for me. And then I thought, I can't believe I didn't think of this before, like murder. Make it a thriller. I love thrillers. That's a genre I'm comfortable with. It's the genre I primarily read and am heavily inspired by. Make it a thriller. So that was the genesis and the inspiration. Specifically, some influences that you'll definitely see in it, you know, Heather's, Mean Girls, Jawbreaker. I actually watched a YouTube video about the fashion in Jawbreaker recently and realized I have not seen that movie in at least 20 years, but it 100% influenced this book. It's amazing how the movies that you see when you are 15 years old settle into your brain, and I'm like, oh yeah, there are tropes from the movie Jawbreaker that are in the Ivies. And in essence, Jawbreaker was a response in many ways to Heathers, and Mean Girls in its own way as well. So it's like that genre, that sub-genre of like mean girl high school fiction. That's definitely an inspiration. There's some really great boarding school thrillers. One that I love is People Like Us by Dana Mella. Highly recommend it. You should read it. Kara Thomas, before she was Kara Thomas, wrote a series as Kara Taylor, Prep School Confidential. I reviewed them actually. I have a whole video on that. They are fun reads. Those were definitely an inspiration, and I put like a little Easter egg to that in there just to let Kara know how much I love her. If she reads the Ivies, I might be embarrassed. And then just generally, I mean, name a boarding school media property where people act horrifically, and I've probably seen it. It's usually movies and TV. I mean, Gossip Girl, and gosh, those awful movies, The Skulls, but I watched them. I know that's college, that's dark academia, but like all of that's an inspiration. And so I started seriously brainstorming and outlining as much as I am capable of doing. Like I said, there are vlogs. In December of 2018, what is time? Yes. I started writing it in January, and so the college admission scandal happened in mid-March. So I was 40 to 45,000 words into the draft. I was more than halfway. And the college admission scandal did impact the book. This is where we have to be careful with spoilers. So I will say there was a plot element that is a plot twist that in the brainstorming phase, I had it on my list as a real thing that I know that goes on that would definitely be interesting and very high stakes. But as I was in Act 2, and actually writing that section of the book, I was getting up to the midpoint and I was like, I don't know if I can fit it in. I haven't yet organically worked it in. Maybe it's too much for this book. Maybe it's too outrageous. It is too soapy. The federal scandal happened, and you know there was a lot involved in that. And I went, oh, well that's going in the book because, so it's in the book. And I actually did it in, the thing that it was is executed differently in my book. And then I inserted jokes about the federal scandal into chapter 1. They're now in there. In the first, like right there, I have my main character discussing how that impacted their school, where everyone was just thankful that no parent at their school was implicated. And so there are references to it in there. And so it influenced it in the sense of like, honestly, it made the book soapier because I was able to draw on this bonkers real thing that happened, and it just kind of enhances the book. But otherwise, it didn't really deviate from what I had already been planning and already writing. I was just bowled over by, I guess, my good luck. It was amazing timing. So a couple of you asked about how the process was different working with the now Big Four, but we'll say Big Five because when I sold this book, working with the Big Five versus working with my previous publisher, HMH, who is considered a smaller, still major publisher. I think that's one I'm going to save for a whole video because I can definitely talk for a long time. And this Q&A is already long and there are still some juicy questions, so just put a pin in that. Would you like to see this book as a TV series or movie one day? Why or why not? I mean, yes, no question. TV series. My dream would be this selling to someone like Netflix or Amazon and doing a series. It's definitely structured that it would work very well as a TV series, and there's actually aspects to it, and I did tell my film agent this, like if it came up, you know, there are some background elements, almost red herrings, and aspects that could 100% be dialed up to 11 in, say, a second series of a TV show. The book itself would work really well as a first series, like I thought about how this would work structurally. And then there are things that happen between the end and the end, because I do a time jump in the book that would basically be a second series, and if pressed, I can come up with more twists and more people to kill. So yes, I want it to be a TV show, and my dream would be that it would be a multiple season TV show. CW would be fine too. I don't want to just shout out the streaming networks, but they buy more stuff, so. Someone asked what my main character is like, as in like, what is their personality and can we trust them? I mean, how much can you really trust a narrator in a book where you know it's all about like toxic friendships and people backstabbing to get their way to the top? That's the thing. Olivia is a character, I mentioned an outsider character, she's a scholarship student, but she really wants to be an insider. And in terms of her personality, she is, in many ways, she's a follower. She's ambitious, but she's definitely not a leader. And she's willing to make sacrifices, personal sacrifices, in order to fit in, to be a part of the group, and to access the things that she wants to access that would suit her ambitions. That said, I wouldn't call her passive. She has a very nice, stubborn, and active streak, but when push comes to shove, when she is in a group dynamic, she's definitely someone who is more often than not kind of under the heel of other people, and she feels uncomfortable in her friend group and like an outsider a lot of the time, and that informs kind of her perspective and her character arc. Because a huge part of her character arc is, who are my friends really? What have I spent the last 2.5 years doing? Who are my friends really, and what did they do behind my back? So there's definitely a part of that, and kind of an examination of toxic friendship from the inside out. And in terms of being able to trust her, she definitely has perspectives on the world she's in, on her fellow students, on her friends, where her judgment is definitely a little clouded. And there are moments later in the book where you, the reader, realize maybe she didn't quite have a handle on who people are and what they're really like and what they're really capable of. And I play off of that her own kind of hang-ups definitely informs how she sees people and how she interacts with them, and, you know, who she looks into versus who she overlooks. I loved this question. What advice would one of your characters give to someone trying to get into an Ivy League school? Don't listen to my characters. Don't, because they would probably tell you, do whatever it takes, stab someone in the back, it's okay to lie. Don't do that. At any, success at any cost is definitely what multiple of my characters would probably advise you. Read the Ivy League. Don't listen to them. Maybe listen to Olivia. She's the more grounded character in that. Would Olivia give good advice? I think Olivia would give perspective. I purposefully designed her as a character who didn't have the best test scores, for example. That's, you know, she's a little vulnerable. And I'll say, tagging onto this, someone else asked kind of what I hope teenage readers will take away from the book, those who are applying to college. And so don't take advice from my characters and what I hope. So first of all, I hope anyone who reads it, whether you are a teenager and you're applying to college, I hope you're entertained. It's definitely over the top, and it is purposefully over the top. The things these girls do, it's completely ridiculous, but it's not, the book doesn't directly moralize, because I don't think that is fun, meaning I am not overly inserting myself as the author saying like, hey y'all, this is bad. But I hope that's your takeaway. Like, if it's not completely clear reading this ridiculous book that none of this stuff is okay, that these characters not only cause damage to other people by being ruthlessly ambitious, but they also damage themselves, like, you're not gonna come out of this kind of thing unscathed if you take it to the level that these characters take it to. Really what I hope the takeaway would be is that no school is worth your own kind of ethical code, your own like sense of self, and certainly it's not worth hurting other people. But also I felt it would be hypocritical if I was like, hey, it doesn't matter where you go to school, because that's just not true. And if you are a student out there and you are in this competitive college admissions environment, you know how intense and real it feels when you're in it. You know how high stakes it feels. And I will say, the further you get away from college, you realize, depending on kind of your arena of life and your attitude, in a good way, it doesn't matter. But it does sometimes. So meaning, I wrote the book so as not to gaslight kids applying to college. This is very serious, but it shouldn't be this serious. But also, all of your stress and anxiety about it is legitimate. That's what I hope people take away from it. And that was my intention. But that's not literally in the book, if that makes sense. There's no hyper-moralizing moment. There are definitely moments where I hope my authorial intent comes through, but that's kind of how I fall. I hope no one takes away from this book like a roadmap of what you should do. And like I said, a lot of the things in the book are real. These are things that people really do, and they're actually really awful things I didn't put in the book. Take care of yourself. Yeah. Which brings me to, someone asked this also lovely question. What kind of advice would you give to your main character if you could? Oh God, if I could give advice to Olivia, the entire ending of the book would be very, very different. And it was a really interesting exercise. If you've been with me for the journey, you know that the ending went through changes. And essentially the original ending was like the comfortable ending that was easy for me to write. And the ending that is being published is the difficult, challenging ending. It's the one where my characters make choices that I definitely wouldn't necessarily make, and I wouldn't want others to necessarily make. And so if I could give advice to my main character, it'd be like, is it worth this? It's not worth this? Maybe listen to your mother. That is actually the advice I would give to my main character, Olivia. Her mom is very right about things, and she doesn't listen to her mother. That's where I'm gonna put that. And if, oh gosh, if I could mentor Olivia, it's hard to talk about this book without spoilers. With the takeaway for teens, I do want to say, I hope this book is entertaining. I hope you like it. Even with where I leave my characters, you are not done forming as a human being at 18. My characters are not done growing up, and I have hope for the future of all of them, with a couple of exceptions. There are some garbage humans in this book, but so know that things can look bleak, making poor choices at 18, but that doesn't define who you are forever. I do think you will crystallize as you kind of finish college and go past college and definitely make choices about how you're going to put yourself forward in the world. But I retain hope that maybe someone will give Olivia good advice after this book ends, and maybe she'll listen to them. But it could go either way. That's where it goes. Someone asked if there was a fictional or a real boarding school that influenced my school. Yes and no. Yes and yes. Fictional, I mean, we've all read boarding school fiction and seen all the TV shows, and all of those kind of tropes definitely informed me. I based a lot on my experiences going to a private college. It is not exactly the same as high school boarding school, but there are definitely similarities in many cases, and so I was able to draw on some of the structures of that, like dorm life, etc. I watched YouTube videos of real kids going to elite boarding schools in the United States. I browsed elite boarding school websites that are in kind of the region and like echelon of school that I was trying to create. Like Exeter is the big one that comes up, but I very purposefully did not make the school a carbon copy of any one school. I picked and chose elements I liked from different real schools so that it felt grounded in reality, but didn't feel like I was writing some thinly veiled version of a school I have never been to. And I did also talk to some people who had attended high school boarding schools. So just that is how I kind of, it's like an amalgamation of a lot of different ideas. I said I would talk about romance. Someone asked if there's romance in the Ivies. Yes, but it's definitely secondary. It is not I don't think of it as a thriller with romance. I think of it as a thriller first and foremost, but I lean into the trope. Someone did ask about tropes. I lean into the trope of the sidekick who is a love interest. Olivia does end up investigating things with her crush, actually, who is also kind of her rival on the school newspaper. So like I used the journalist trope as well. She's also a student journalist, and they end up kind of throwing themselves into this case together, and there's definitely a romantic spark there. But it is not a romance in the sense of the primary and even secondary goal is not romance. It's actually more friendship. I'm exploring ideas about friendship far more than I'm exploring ideas of romance. So you'll have like some juicy wibbly scenes, but it is not a happily ever after romance subplot in a YA thriller. So if you don't like romance, I don't think it's anything that will bother you, and if you do like romance, do not read this expecting like a happily ever after and like a really juicy romantic subplot. Like it's there, but it's not, it's third. It's third. Murder, friendship, romance. And so tropes, how do I talk about tropes without spoilers? So we'll talk about the top line ones. I mentioned the meddling journalist, student journalist. It's a boarding school trope. Obviously, toxic friendships is definitely one that is worked into this. There are other ones that I don't want to bring up lest I give spoilers, but I mean, really the overriding trope of this book is it's a boarding school murder book, basically. And then I also loved this question: what percentage of draft 1 of the Ivies made it to the final draft unchanged? So unchanged in terms of like not counting line edits and copy edits, because you're gonna do those over the whole book. So just dev edits, like really changing the book. And I thought about it, 60 to 70% of the first draft made it to final, in the sense that overall structure didn't change. I can think of the exact sections, scenes, and chapters that got major overhauls, and it is in 2 specific places. A chunk of kind of the break into 2 and into the fun and games got semi-significant facelifts. The main structure was there, but I layered more on top of it and rewrote a couple key scenes. And then the end got completely rewritten, but because the rest of it, the general beat structure, and they go here and then this and this, that didn't change. So like 60 to 70% of it is kind of as it was originally rendered. Like, but that said, and this is the fascinating thing about a thriller, guys, well, just about good revisions, that amount that I did edit, so let's say 30 to 40%, 30 made critical difference. Once I had done those edits and then handed the book to new readers, my red herrings and twists landed in ways that they just hadn't on the previous versions. It was like magic, magic. It's the magic of revisions. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. As I mentioned, there were more questions that I do want to cover in other videos, but I will end on the content/trigger warning. So this is going to have light to moderate-ish spoilers. It doesn't spoil like the big twists, but these are things that readers might want to know about. So I am gonna put spoiler warning on the screen. It's optional. I hope if you don't want to be spoiled that you stop watching right now. If so, bye. This is basically the end of the video. Don't forget to comment down below to enter the ARC giveaway. And before I jump to the content warnings so you can decide whether or not you want to listen to them, the content warnings I plan on sharing have to do with an abuse of power as well as an angle of blackmail that happens in the book. Okay? So, content warning. The main one is a trope. I do use the student-teacher trope in this book. It is not like a game-changing twist. It's pretty clearly telegraphed, especially to thriller readers who are familiar with this trope and know that it's used very often in boarding school type stories and are looking for it. So this isn't like an earth-shattering spoiler. It is something that I play with. I know for many people that's just a flat out no, but I can at least tell you in terms of content warning, I'm definitely frowning upon it. It's not getting any kind of free pass. This is not Riverdale. And actually, writing that trope into this book unfortunately introduced me to the fact that the relationship as I wrote it is not illegal in the state of Massachusetts, which was very interesting to find out. I thought I was writing something horrific that was illegal. It is not, but that is definitely something that is in the book. There is a teacher who has an inappropriate relationship with a student. And the second one that I do think is worth offering the content warning for those who wish it. There is an aspect and an allusion to a character blackmailing another person with the threat of outing them. And I just want to say, they don't do that. It doesn't happen. There's no outing in this book. And this is essentially a spoiler, but that blackmail isn't real. It's used to kind of ratchet up how terrible a person is, but that person does not do that thing. There's no one who is forcibly outed in this book. That was important to me. So that's it. As I already kind of said, don't forget to enter the ARC giveaway down below. If you have more questions, let me know. I will probably do a second video. I'm definitely doing like a 10 things that you need to know about the Ivies video later, and like an introduction to the cast. So give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I'm going to have a pinned comment down below with the ARC giveaway dates. And just remember, you do need to have an email that you use with NetGalley or be open to opening a NetGalley account. That is how you will receive and download the eARC. And as long as you use NetGalley, you can enter the giveaway. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching and happy writing.